Hey, everybody. How are you guys? It's Friday, and welcome to another show for Positive Tea with Fee. I'm your host, Felicia Brogy, and it has been a long but wonderful, productive week. I hope everybody is doing as well as I am with aspirations, with processes, with goals, and just existing for your purpose. This week, our show is titled Trust the Process. And this week has definitely been going to the next level for a lot of the things in my life personally, as well as the people around me, as far as the processes that we're enduring in our lives. Hey there, Charlotte. Good to see you. And trusting the process here tonight and in our lives in general. There are some steps in that process that I really want to dive into tonight that have been very, very helpful with me and some of the new journeys that we've spoke about in the last month or two that I'm embarking on a personal level. So let's get started. Self motivation is the first one that I wanted to talk about. Self motivation is the first thing that I wanted to talk about because it's one of the things I feel like is most important. I say that because self motivation is going to be I think I can sometimes, and other times it's going to be the icing on whatever cake we're forming in our lives and our journey and whatever we're trying to accomplish. You remember when we were little kids in elementary school and they had the stickers, or some teachers used the stamps in preschool, the little kind of like a tattoo stamp, but it wasn't really a real tattoo whenever you did a good job. So that was basically something to kind of reiterate, let you know, pat you on the back. You did something good. You're headed in the right direction. And I think from a very young age, especially as kids or as students, as we got older, there would always be something like honor roll or allowance to kind of let us know that we were going in the right direction. Well, as you get older, you're going to have things like your paycheck. You're going to have things like bonuses. You're going to have things like accolades that are given. Um, to you from other adults, other leaders, other organizations you may be a part of. And those are things that we're going to get from other people. But the reason that we can't rely on that when we're within our own journey of self development is because motivating yourself outside of what you are getting externally is so important, because it's going to allow you to take every step over every rock, up every hill, and climb to reach the mountain of your purpose. Relying on others to validate or to give us that attaboy or attagirl is something that we're not always going to have. There's nothing wrong with that. It feels good. We like it. We started out life either in school or at home, you know, with getting that you did a good job, getting that super sticker, getting that star by our name. But there's always going to be those times where it's just you getting out of bed in the morning and being able to push through when you're grieving over a loss of a loved one, or you're grieving over a loss of a job, or you're grieving over the disappointment of that failure. And you're going to have to push yourself. During those times, you're going to have to pray to God. You're going to have to become one with the universe. And you're going to have to tell yourself in any way that you can that you got to keep going. You're going to have to tell yourself that it's okay that yesterday wasn't so good. You're going to have to tell yourself that your reason for going today was the same reason you had yesterday. And although it's harder today, you still got to do it. And so self motivation is important because you're not always going to have those external sources. Sometimes you're going to be doing good at work. Sometimes you're going to be going good as a parent. Sometimes you're going to be doing good in the community, in your family, and you're not going to get those pats on the back. So, what do? What do you do when you pray to God and you know you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing, everything He told you to do, and you're still not feeling like He's answering your prayer, or you're still not feeling like your husband appreciates the fold laundry, or you're still not feeling like your wife appreciates the roses you bought her, or your boss doesn't appreciate the good job you did on those tasks? What do you do then? How do you continue to go? You have to motivate yourself. And the way you motivate yourself is getting a positive outlook on the small wins. The fact that you showed up, that's part of it right there. Showing up is a good chunk of a percentage of you in your journey to success, fulfilling the purpose is showing up. Sometimes that showing up is just getting out of bed. Sometimes that showing up is being able to pack your child a lunch. Sometimes that showing up is paying a bill. Sometimes that showing up is clocking in at work when you want to go home and you're like, I should have stayed in bed. And it's not always the easiest thing, but you're going to have to learn to celebrate the small wins. I used to overlook small wins personally. I didn't really see the point of celebrating a small win. It was kind of an annoyance to me when I felt like I had so far to go. But what was able to motivate me is knowing, guess what? You still got that far to go, but look how far you've come. Look at the step you took in the same direction. And so I had to start motivating myself and understanding that even though I might not have took a huge leap, a huge step, I took a step in the right direction. And that's what self motivation is all about. Is no matter what you're doing, how you're doing it, how fast you're doing it, how often you're doing it, just keep doing it. And that's what self motivation is all about, because you got to give yourself that mental sticker, that mental star, that mental stamp, that mental that a girl, that mental that a boy, because other people, external sources are not always going to be able to give it to you. So you got to give it to yourself. The next thing that's helped me so much is self assurance. Self assurance is being able to know that the same things you told yourself when you started the journey you're on, the same thing you told yourself to get you going, get you started, get you to this point is going to be the same thing you're going to have to tell yourself over and over again. You're going to have to tell yourself that no matter what happens, you tried it. You're going to have to tell yourself that no matter what happens, you're still worth it. This is a process you're going to have to trust. And just like with self motivation, we're not always going to have those external things that are assuring us that it's going to be all right. You're not always going to have that person beside you to hold your hand. And I speak from personal experience when I say you have to assure yourself that you're worth your journey. If I don't believe in Felicia, I can't expect anyone else to believe in Felicia. If I don't think that Felicia is worth the sleepless nights, the prayerful tears, the list, the aspirations of goals that I set for myself, fulfilling my purpose and reaching down deep to understand that what I'm doing matters, then I can't expect anyone else to do that. And so it starts with you. It starts with you to reassure you and understanding that God put something down in each of us that only we have. Only Felicia can show up for Felicia. Even though I might be sitting beside a friend or my husband or my parents or a coworker or anybody that's on a similar journey to me, you still have to show up for you. And I still have to show up for me. And so self assurance is basically taking you to a place where you're reminding yourself, you know what? I can do this. Why not me? Why not me? What's keeping me from being able to step out, do what I know I need to do what I know that I told myself from the very beginning that I was going to do. What's stopping me from doing that? And when you reassure yourself and reassure yourself that the only thing stopping you from doing that is you can go back to that place you were when you were like, I'm going to do this. And when you decided these are the steps I'm going to take to do this, and when you decided not only are these the steps I'm going to take, but I'm going to take steps to take the steps because every day is not going to be the same. And every day there's not going to be somebody out there saying, hey, guess what? You did a good job. Guess what? This is why you started. So you got to assure yourself and remind yourself that all you need is yourself and prayer and God and His approval, and you can keep going. And you can assure yourself that no matter how you get to the finish line, you're going to get there because that's what you set out to do. And you got work to do in your purpose and you're not finished. And that's what self assurance is all about. Faith versus fear. Faith versus fear is probably one of the most intense of all of the battles you're going to face within your journey. I say that because as I break it down, these are two very natural things that we all feel at some point in our lives. All the time, every day, stage to stage, year to year, no matter what. Celebrities that have more money than they can count, or the guy that you may pass on the street working on the highway. Faith and fear, there's a constant battle. Guess what? We're human. Faith, let me break it down. Webster has his definition. Several other scholars have their definition. But to summarize it all and to give the best definition for faith is trusting, having confidence in, believing in something or someone. Okay? Fear, let me break that down. Of course, there's a whole lot more of depth, I think, in fear and the definitions that I found on fear. But to summarize those definitions, it's basically a hesitance due to what our minds tell us is a possibility of something unpleasant. And that unpleasantness can stem from something emotional, something physical, just something we don't like. We're telling our minds, hey, 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 hold on. You don't want to do this because this could happen. You don't want to do that because this. And so it's faith and fear are things that we all experience from a young age because we were born to have that little thing in us that causes us to be faithful. And we were also born with that little thing in us that causes us to be fearful. So they're going to be in battle with one another. But the first thing that was able to help me is when I realized those are normal, those are natural. But here's the thing, when I trust in my purpose, when I have confidence that God is going to carry me through, when I believe in the fact that what I'm doing and the steps I'm taking with those goals that I've set for myself to reach goals and to do what I want to do and how I need to do it with God's blessing, there's going to be fear. And I was able to accept the fact that one is hardly ever present without the other. But here's the thing that I've learned over the years. I know that there's going to be failure within my faith. I know that there's going to be times where it just doesn't work out. Even though I may do every single thing that I have set out to do, every single thing that God gave me as a purpose, there's still going to be times where things are not going to work out. There's still going to be times where I'm going to cry. There's still going to be times where I'm going to laugh. There's still going to be times that I'm going to hurt, but there's still going to be times where I'm going to succeed. So when I accepted the fact that when it comes to faith and it comes to fear, one is hardly ever around without the other. Because guess what? Sometimes when you're fearing something, it's because your faith has shifted. You're confident that you're going to fail. And that's okay. Because when you turn that faith in failure into understanding that that fear of failure is okay, because the two are going hand in hand, because we're human and we're going to fail even though we have faith, and we're human and we're going to have faith even though we have fear. We understand that the human beings that we are have these emotions that are there, but it does not stop the power of our purpose. It doesn't stop the power of my purpose because I drive on a highway and it's dark and it's raining. I've still got that purpose, but I hesitate. But that doesn't mean I stop. So when you hesitate because of your fear, you have to tap yourself on the shoulder and say, God put me in this position. God got me this far for a reason. God got me here because this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And although the fleshly human part of Felicia might hesitate, might get a little knot in my stomach, I know that because I have faith in the confidence of my purpose, I have to keep going. So I've recognized for years that as long as my fear does not outweigh my faith, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. When I think about those times that I wasn't quite able to fulfill my purpose because I had that thought of all the things that could go wrong. And some of them have went wrong on the journey. They've went very wrong. They've went wrong sometimes in a point where I had absolutely positively no idea what steps I was going to take to come back. They've went wrong, so wrong sometimes that everyone around me who cared about me was starting to get fearful with me. They've went so wrong sometimes where I've had to readjust my crown of confidence that came from my faith, okay? And sit quietly by myself with just God and I, understanding that He is my creator, understanding that being obedient to Him is going to come with a price. And that price is being able to trust Him despite my fear, and understanding that He knows I'm fearful, understanding that those failures are going to come. So not only is fear normal, but fear is a lot of times merited. Fear that we have is preparing you for something, but that doesn't mean that you let go of your faith. That doesn't mean that you allow your fear to get greater than your faith. Even though the two may be roommates, you don't want that fear coming in Faith's closet. You want that fear to stay in its place. You want that fear to stay where it's kind of in the back, so to speak. Um, but don't beat yourself up for it, because it's a normal thing, and it's something that as human beings who have lived the life and have ran this journey, this race of making sure you grab hold of your purpose, it's something that's always going to be there. We are inherently creatures of habit, and we're also creatures of fear. And we talk a whole lot about faith and how you got to have faith to rely on God. You got to have faith to understand that you can perform at your job in a way you never have before. You got to have faith to be, the mother that you always knew you needed to be. You got to have faith. You got to believe. You got to have confidence. And it's true, we do. But within the midst of that, one thing that gets pushed in the background is letting people know that it's okay to be fearful. And not only is it okay to be fearful, it's normal to be fearful. But grabbing hold to your faith and understanding that trusting in God, trusting in your purpose, believing in your purpose is going to be something that's going to carry you through, as long as you make sure it's greater than your fear. And I'm speaking from personal experience when I tell you that the journey is going to be well worth it. That tug of war between faith and fear is something that is not going to stop. It's always going to be there. And even though you're going to be able to exercise your faith muscle more and more, the closer you get to God and the more in depth you get in your purpose, doesn't go away. It's always going to be a little bit of it there. And so you always have to ask yourself after every failure, did you learn something from it? That's what my dad used to say. You get to a point where you're understanding that, oh my goodness, this happened. I was scared this was going to happen, and here it is. But you learn something from it, you become stronger, you take that experience, you make sure that you do things differently, and you keep it moving because you have faith. The last thing that I want to talk about tonight is, if at first you don't succeed, you've got the self motivation, you've got the self assurance, you're understanding that faith versus fear is going to be a persistent war. But guess what? Persistence is what you pay for success. But that still does not guarantee that everything is always going to go the way we need them to go. Um, there's a lot of technical things that I'm still personally trying to learn. Um, I think it's a very good thing to take advantage of the pandemic and get into this virtual world and grab it by the horns. There's so many advantages in being able to communicate with people in different states, to communicate with people that you might have known before, but they're not very available right now, or they are available, but it's just not going to work in person. So it's good for us to be able to network and communicate with one another. But there are a lot of things that I'm still learning. And so with that comes the understanding that sometimes things come up, and technical difficulties has personally been a little bit of a boulder in the way of a lot of things for me, but I'm able to push through because I know what my purpose is. I know that there is a method to the madness. And once you figure out, even with other things in life, like I have two disabled parents, and that is something that can be very emotionally draining. My parents have both been there for me in so many ways, and my mom has actually been disabled for going on 15 years, but my dad has only been disabled for about 15, 16 months. And so, with that being said, there are times where no matter what's going right in my life, there have been times where I look at the fact that my emotions have tried to stunt my growth in certain areas. And I have to put on a happy face a lot of times to get the job done, no matter what it is. And sometimes I still fail at some things. But you know what? I use those as roadmaps and learning experiences of telling me not to do this or to do that, depending on the situation. And there have been a lot of times where I have leaped out into something because I didn't take my self assurance with me. I didn't trust the process of motivating myself. I did not trust the process of not allowing my fear to outweigh my faith. And because of that, I've went in situations knowing what the purpose was, but I was not armed with the right equipment. So I was not able to trust the process. And it put me back. Now, whenever that happens, you have to be able to do what I did: dust yourself off, get back up. Dust yourself off and remember why you started. Dust yourself off and understand that the more you try it, the more confident you're going to get with it. And the better off you're going to be. If you just decide to give up, then that negates the whole reason that you started to begin with. If at first you don't succeed, you have to stay away from negativity. And guess what? We talk a lot about haters. We talk a lot about external forces that are negative, external forces that don't believe in us, external forces that are set out as roadblocks. But guess what? Sometimes the person that's the most negative when you don't succeed the first time or even the second or third time, it's yourself. You're in your own head. You're telling yourself, hey, this didn't work the last time, so why do I need to try it again? This didn't work the second time, so I guess it's just not meant for me. This didn't work the third time, so I'm not going to ask anyone for help and I'm not going to network with anybody. I'm just going to throw in the towel. Then you start having a pity party and telling yourself, hey, this didn't work, so maybe it's not meant for me. Think about the 12 apostles that Jesus had. If they all would have decided the first time they got opposition from the Pharisees, or the first time rocks or dirt got in their sandals, that they were just going to stop, then that would have negated the whole purpose. So, to make it a little bit more relatable, in any journey that we're on, we've got to keep going. Even if the journey is just starting a new job and you're like, oh, well, it's like the third week. This seems a little difficult. You're telling yourself something negative. And when you continue to feed yourself negative thoughts, you're going to get a negative output. And pretty soon, you're not going to be able to self motivate. You're not going to be able to self assure. And faith and fear is not even going to matter because those aren't going to exist. You're just being negative. So we have to stop with the negative self talk. Any negativity, whether it's coming from you or coming from somewhere else, you got to stop that. If at first you don't succeed, you have to stay away from your past fears. Your past fears are in situations that they're related to. You got to learn from them and you got to move on. Just because there was a fear that you had in a particular area of your life, bringing that into the present area negates the whole purpose of learning from that and moving on. Now, it no longer means that new fears will not persist, but by recycling those doubts and recycling those fears, you're going to recycle those failures. So, a lot of times we don't fail because what we're doing actually doesn't work. We're failing because we're bringing a lot of the baggage from past experiences into what we're doing now. And then we're like, well, that didn't work. Well, of course it didn't work because you're bringing a lot of the baggage from your other experiences to your current experience. So, what you have to do is stay away from your past fears, learn from them, leave them where they are, and don't turn those fears into failures. We have enough going on to begin with. We don't need to add to it. Now, thirdly, if at first you don't succeed, remember that your failure is the best teacher. It's the best teacher because it's telling you what not to do, it's telling you what doesn't work. And so it's giving you a better way to do it or a new way of doing it. And so it's a teacher because, as I said earlier, like my dad used to say, no matter what happens, no matter what twists and turns, if you learn something from it, your next step is going to be a better step, even though it may not be your best. So keep that in mind. And last but certainly not least, if at first you don't succeed, still look forward to a positive outcome. Still tell yourself that the next one is going to be the better one and possibly the best one. There's no way for you to know if you get on board with whatever you plan to do, whatever journey you're trying to partake in, and you don't understand that it's possible that it's going to work out. It's possible that it's going to be good. It's possible that it's going to inspire. It's possible that it's going to work. And so if at first you don't succeed, you just got to try again. So, everybody, I want to thank you so much for tuning in to another Positive Tea with Fee. You guys have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week for a special episode. Thanks. Bye.